What's good, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome back to the Water Boys channel. As today I got a topic that kind of shifted in a different perspective with this article that broke with Eric Bieniemy. But I was gonna have not a debate, but a kind of a conversation of who would you rather have between Matt Nagy and Eric Bieniemy. And I will kind of flip the script and try to keep it the same on what I wanted to attend as well. But a lot of this is going to be solely focused on Eric Bieniemy now with the new article that came out, and I want to kind of get my perspective on it and if I'm buying everything they're selling, if everything is true or not. And there's a lot to dive in because this article is very interesting. But without further ado, if you guys haven't already, or if you are new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for checking me out. Please do subscribe. Please do like this video, as I'll try to keep daily videos out throughout the week as well, even NFL content, mock drafts, maybe another dream free agency scenario as well, because that video is taking off and those are one of my funnest videos to do. So I might have to just unload another one and see what I have up my sleeve. But please do subscribe to the channel because I do got a lot more content in store. And without further ado, let's dive into some of these interesting takes with Eric Bieniemy. So, like I did mention before, I did want to make this kind of who would you rather have between Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy, because it seems like if Chiefs do part ways with Eric Bieniemy, and now with this article coming out, it seems like it could be highly likely that it would be Matt Nagy. And I see a lot of people excited about that, and they have rights to be as well. But in my aspect too, I kind of beg to differ on some of that as well, and I'll dive into a lot of that. But I want to dive into this article and give my quick brief takes on it as well. And before I do dive into this article, I want to say I'm not breaking no news with this Eric Bieniemy stuff. I'm just basically stating my opinions on a report and article that came out, and I wanted to give my takes on it as well. So this is not no news leak, no news break as well. And if you guys haven't seen the article, I'll try to see if I can pin it down in the comments below and give you guys a read so you guys can check it out, because it is a very interesting read. There is a lot to take in that, so you guys will enjoy the read. A lot of things can be answered because a lot of stuff kind of does add up as well. And then there's things that's like, is it all fully true? And that's what we'll dive in as well. But like I said, I do want to kind of tail in Matt Nagy in this as well. So let's dive into this article. And it starts basically from the end of the Super Bowl last year, actually before the Super Bowl, when I'm stuck on Matt Nagy, but when Eric Bieniemy started taking interviews. And I guess the big rift between them was, we all knew KC was having O-line struggles because we had Mitchell Schwartz, who he was hurt, and then we had Eric Fisher, who was hurt as well, and they were out for the year as well, so they had to make some adjustment. And during that time as well, it was said that Andy Reid and the staff was making some good changes as well, but it was stuff that Eric Bieniemy didn't agree with. And because Eric Bieniemy is the OC, he actually does get first say, and he actually does run the offense because that's what his contract entails. So that was something new and interesting I learned, because definitely with a lot of Chiefs Kingdom and what we've said in past with OCs, even when it went to like a Doug Peterson or a Matt Nagy, even Eric Bieniemy as well. Like when we've seen bad play calls or things like that, and I know Chiefs fans have been here because I've been here as well. We will say, let Nagy call the plays. Let Peterson call the plays. Let Bieniemy call the plays. Stop it, Reid. Like, you could tell when Reid has his own sprinkle in things as well. But it's kind of interesting to see that that may not be the case whatsoever. It looks like these OCs have full control. Reid still designs the plays and everything like that, but the ones who's calling the plays, that is left up to the OC. So I found that very interesting as well. Now, yes, Reid can have a say as well, be like, hey, call this play or things like that, or feels like what will succeed. But at the end of the day, Bieniemy is the last one with the call. And with that, he designed a whole different scheme for the Super Bowl, and as we know, that didn't work out as well. Now, again, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because that can be a true report and it can be a false report. It's in the article, so we'll just have to see how that pans out as well. I do want to say that most of these reports are going to be real as well, because if we go into the end of last week, Kansas City kind of wants this stuff to be known as well. And it also mentioned in the article too, which I do 100% agree with, which is that Kansas City made known that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy are going to have a conversation to discuss the future and things like that, which doesn't need to be done, honestly, because of Eric Bieniemy's contract has expired. So that means he is not a Kansas City Chief, which means he can go and look for different jobs. He can go look for head coaching positions in college, OC positions around the NFL. Right now, it doesn't look like he's going to get a head coaching job in the NFL. So it's an OC job or any type of position. Whatever he wants to try to do, he can go out and get. He's not under contract with the Chiefs, so they don't hold any rights to him whatsoever. So they do not need to be having this conversation, but they are. And what factors lie into that as well is the whole Brian Flores lawsuit, which I mentioned as well, which makes complete sense as well, because Kansas City wants to make sure they do their due diligence and make sure they do everything correctly so they don't get put in a light of being, they fall under a racism category, which makes complete sense, even though they have given Eric Bieniemy every shot. He's been with this team for a while, even as a running backs coach as well, and has been promoted inside the organization. So I doubt any of that would have been an issue, but I get it. You have to check mark every box, even though it sounds messed up as it is, but you have to do your due diligence so you don't have a paper trail on you, and he goes back and makes it seem like it is racism. So I do completely get all of that. I just don't see that being the case whatsoever. And even going back into the years prior, actually the year before, was his contract actually expired too, but he was aiming for head coaching positions even as he was now as well. And as we know, he struck out. He wasn't able to land anything, and KC quietly signed him to a 1-year contract. We all noticed it wasn't nothing that big. We honestly thought he was still under contract and just looking for another head coaching job. But no, that wasn't the case. He was actually signed to a 1-year extension, and I think that's how it's been. It's just been added 1 year. Do I think that'll be the case this year? With this report and article coming out, I highly doubt it. But what this article also stressed, which is very true as well, Andy Reid is very, very loyal to his guys. We've seen it year in and year out. And that could be the death of him. We mentioned that with the Bob Sutton, maybe even with Steve Spagnuolo, and now with the Eric Bieniemy as well. One thing you can't discredit about Andy Reid is his loyalty, but at the end of the day, if that's what's going to cost you championships, and it looks like it's going to cost him twice now with this Eric Bieniemy story, that can hurt your legacy in the long run too, and I don't know if that's a big factor in Andy Reid because he's done a lot in his career, definitely in NFL, being known as one of the top head coaches, if not top head coach. I get it, it's up for debate as well, but he definitely deserved to be in the conversation for everything he has done. But yeah, that's going to leave a huge mark. But diving more into this as well, I get to the fact where it's like sign him to a 1-year extension undercover, and also do this as well, because like it mentioned, it's basically you sign him to the 1-year extension undercover, or it makes headlines that, KC doesn't retain one of the best OCs in the league. And then things just start popping up. Be like, well, why didn't they do that? How come this is happening? Eric Bieniemy can't be a head coach. Now he can't be an offensive coordinator in KC. I get those type of headlines, and it's the storyline you didn't want to have happening. So I understand that as well. And Eric Bieniemy has been a good OC, so things shouldn't have changed drastically, and offensive scheming wise as well. But then things, I guess, did change going into that training camp. I guess his demeanor, his attitude, his temperament changed as well. And we all kind of smirked and made fun because we thought it was a funny kind of clip and things like that. And everyone remembers as well when he called Mahomes a prick, and that he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? He's just very on top of his craft, and he makes sure everyone else is as well. And that's a lot of high caliber quarterbacks. I can see it as well. But as well, like they said, and they said in the article as well, every joke has truth to it. And I guess from that, it was basically he was getting annoyed with how basically perfect Mahomes was trying to be. And then you could see them definitely throughout the season going at each other. And so they didn't want to publicize it at all, which to an extent, with how big this article made it seem, is like they didn't publicize it, which was kind of good at how under wraps it seemed, because yeah, we have seen the moments as well, and we've seen that famous quote where Mahomes was like, hey, someone can call the fucking play or I will. And I get it. That was one of the big ones. That's actually a huge thing where Chiefs Kingdom and actually NFL fans, and even made ESPN as well, where they're like, damn, is there like a rift between Mahomes and Bieniemy? And we started to see it kind of, I don't want to say crumble, but I guess we can get to that point because that's what it seems like it got to. And yeah, it just seemed like downhill as well. And it made perfect sense too because the offense wasn't in sync as well. And definitely in the month of September, which is where Andy Reid is his best as well. We've seen it with the likes of Doug Peterson or Matt Nagy, and again, Bieniemy as well. Reid doesn't hardly ever struggle in September and early October as well. And for the fact KC offense wasn't clicking whatsoever, you could tell there was something wrong as well. And we led to early points of it being the defense because we've known with Steve Spagnuolo's defense, it takes a while to adjust the system, and I get it. And it's unfortunate too that we let that slide because it's kind of tiresome as well that we wait till week 8 for a defense to be kicking in full stride. But that's a convo for another day. Let's focus on this Eric Bieniemy story as well. The offense started not clicking as well. Even though in early season form against the Browns, Ravens, and Chargers, they were scoring points, they did not look like themselves. And we wanted to result back, defenses are starting to figure out Mahomes. And even though that may be the case here and there as well, every little factor has got a play in this as well. And that has to do I want to mention even with Eric Bieniemy, like this doesn't solely put him full blame for everything that's happened. Nothing in that offense was clicking, but as well, he's the one calling the plays, and now knowing his role in it as well, he's got to do things to adjust. And then you start hearing reports of his temperament, of him being stubborn and not listening to players whatsoever, and like key players as well. Of course, Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and McCall Hardman came. And it's just crazy to hear because you hear so many good things, and then you even see his interviews in training camp as well. It's like, I don't want to say he sounds intellectual, but he sounds like a very player-friendly coach. And then you could see the support. Like, you've seen Travis Kelce come out and defend his guy. You've seen Andy Reid even say, if Eric Bieniemy doesn't get a head coaching job next year, I don't know what. And which is true. But then actually I kind of want to look back on it. It might have been kind of a subliminal because he didn't say if he got a head coaching job. He basically said that he wasn't going to be the OC next year in KC because he's going to be coaching somewhere else. Which basically kind of, if you put 2 and 2 together, was kind of him saying he's not going to be the OC here. Maybe should have made us dive deeper into it as well and been like, because we all thought, does Andy Reid know something that we don't know? Like, he's going to get a head coaching job. And then we've seen him not even get interviews this offseason. He only had, 1 or 2 with the Broncos and the Saints as well. We expected more. And that was crazy to hear from Andy Reid saying that he's not going to be here next year because he's going to be a coach somewhere else. But interviews weren't coming. And as well, like, there was still a big hole in the offensive coordinator position in Kansas City if he was going to let it slide. And then another thing I kind of want to put in a factor as well is just like, this is where the story gets so iffy. It's like, if Kansas City knew all of this stuff and every situation with Eric Bieniemy and stuff like that, and tensions, and even though there is tensions, and I get Andy Reid is very loyal as well, but you had a star in the making with Mike Kafka being your next offensive coordinator. And until waiting so long on Eric Bieniemy's future and if he wanted to be a Kansas City Chief or not, if you knew all this stuff and you knew the tension between Bieniemy and Mahomes, why would you let Mike Kafka go? And I just don't get it. And I know they didn't let him go, but how would you let him even be able to take a chance to go to the New York Giants to be offensive coordinator, knowing that Bieniemy might not be here next year? Like, you should have promoted Mike Kafka immediately, because there was another point in this article as well where I want to say it was week 3 where Bieniemy supposedly went off on Kafka and Mahomes, and then Reid had to step in, and then he kind of divided the playbook and play calling as well, to where Kafka got more of the passing play calls, and then Bieniemy got more of the running play calls, and which to an effect kind of worked out a little bit. It didn't work out immediately, but you could tell that the running game started getting better, and then the passing game as well started getting more efficient, even though it wasn't to what we are used to seeing with Kansas City whatsoever. So it's just interesting to see, because Kafka, we all know he was going to be a great offense coordinator, and for Kansas City to just let that walk out the door knowing they might not bring Bieniemy back is crazy to hear. Now, again, this is where we go into basically, I want to say the plan B, which would be Matt Nagy. And I'm kind of sliding with that as well now because of this report that's coming out. Well, article. I don't want to keep calling it a report because it is an article. I would slide the Matt Nagy way as well, because even when my thing before making this video was going to be, are there different coaching options? I don't want a Bieniemy, and I didn't want a Nagy as well. I wanted to expand and see. I wanted kind of like fresh blood in there as well, and get like different kind of coaching systems and see how it goes. And then also too, I was all like, well, if we bring Matt Nagy in as well, it's like he's just gonna be taking the calls from Reid. But then again, I don't know if that's the case whatsoever after hearing this article and seeing that Bieniemy was actually making most of the play calling. Maybe Nagy does make most of the play callings. We'll just have to see. Again, I do not know if Matt Nagy will be our OC next year, but if I had to bank on it, it looks like it's a good 80% chance he might be. And I don't see Bieniemy coming back whatsoever. But that was going to be most of this video for me, was going back and forth with that. But now it's going to be, I like Nagy more in this situation, because even when Nagy was here, again, we don't know what happens under scenes every year and behind closed doors, because nothing's ever perfect as it may seem. But the way it was, Matt Nagy brought up Mahomes from college as well. He was one of his first coaches, and in those first 2 years, like, they were very well meshing. You could tell it was still a friendly environment. You didn't hear much, even with Alex Smith there, where tensions could have been flying. Alex Smith could have been like, man, screw this BS. I don't want this kid trying to come take my job. And it seems like everything was handled well. And in that perspective as well, Matt Nagy might be able to bring that culture back to life as well. And also too, like, Matt Nagy might have a different dimension that he brings to the coaching staff than Bieniemy didn't as well. And I think that could all come to fruition with Matt Nagy was able to get a head coaching job. Whether you may say he did a terrible job in Chicago whatsoever, he still took the Bears to a playoffs in his first year. And then things did start going towards a downward spiral as well. But he was able to impress the GMs, the owners as well, to get that position. Something Bieniemy hasn't done lately as well. And that's because, at least in the article, it showed that the Broncos weren't impressed whatsoever. They asked him a question relating back to a situation which I don't know of, and it didn't mention the article whatsoever, and he completely bombed that question. Now, there has been reports coming out saying that, which makes sense as well, that Bieniemy wasn't even a finalist to even be considered for the Broncos job, so it didn't come down to one question, which is also very true as well, which is hard to be like, what makes perfect sense about this as well? It's like, some things you can fully buy into and some things you can't. One thing I do want to dive into right away, which caught a lot of KC fans right away, was the Cincinnati game and what happened there as well, because we know that Mahomes just does not fall flat on his face. You don't go from a perfect game to shit just like that in a half. And something had to happen, and apparently something did happen in the locker room as well. And of course, it had to do with that sequence before halftime as well, with Mahomes throwing the pass to Tyreek. He gets tackled at the 1. Apparently, that was Bieniemy's play calling as well. There was different kind of scripts that Reid wanted to call. Mahomes was getting frustrated that the calls weren't getting in and things like that. Apparently, during that time and throughout the season as well, when you see Mahomes' frustration throughout the season, he's basically hearing bickering between Reid, Kafka, and Bieniemy as well. And that's got to be frustrating for a quarterback. And I can see how that could get in his head as well. So, and I can see where he could be like, man, someone call the fucking play. Why don't you? And I get that now. Because you want just like one sole guy, whether it's Reid to Mahomes, Bieniemy to Mahomes, or Kafka to Mahomes. He doesn't need all that chatter going in his ear when he's trying to execute a drive, especially one that's that close as well. So that's starting to add up and make sense. And apparently something went down in the locker room and after the game as well, where the second half, we know what happened, and Mahomes didn't look a shell of himself. And I don't care what anyone says, because someone could be like, damn, you shouldn't let an argument get the best of you. But come on, like, you could have an argument with a family member, with a spouse, a loved one, whatsoever. That shit can ruin your whole day. And if it was something like really, really bad, I could see how that takes him out of a flow completely. So I completely get that. And it's just unfortunate, honestly, because if that is the case and that's what really happened, that is kind of shit, man, because a half really took away Kansas City from getting to a Super Bowl. But then again as well, this looks like tensions were building up. Blood was flowing as well. I don't know if I would want to be in that Super Bowl as well, because you don't know what could have happened in the next 2 weeks leading up to a Super Bowl. You don't know what could have happened during Super Bowl as well. Last thing you want to see is the Kansas City Chiefs get blown out in another Super Bowl just because of offense execution as well. And that's what a lot of people forget to remember in the Buccaneers as well, because the Buccaneers did score points, but it wasn't solely our defense's fault. We all know that the offensive line didn't help whatsoever as well. But again, like they said, Reid and Mahomes and the coaching staff felt like they had a good plan going in, and apparently Bieniemy didn't, and that's what led to more tension as well. Apparently Bieniemy got to call his thing. But again, like, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because I don't know what is true here, but that's just what the article isn't taking. But that is the case. That's crazy, because you had one defensive coordinator, and Bob Sutton cost you, I'm just going to say, the Super Bowl, because that's what it was. Because if our defense could stop somebody, we're beating the Rams in the Super Bowl that year. And then if we had our offense clicking the way it normally is, I think we beat the Rams again this year. But it's just so interesting to see, you guys, because for an organization, definitely like Kansas City, where it seems like it's on the uprising and it seems like everything's all good, it just lets you know that everything not always as good as it may seem as well. And Casey's having a lot of turnover. We've always mentioned that as well, that they have such a good coaching staff that things will start changing, and it looks like finally that time has come. Also today, reports came out that Sam Madison joined the Miami Dolphins, which I was kind of hurt by it in a little bit, because I'm like, damn, another coach gone. Like, this is a huge turnover that's going to happen, bigger than it has been in the last 3 or 4 years. But then again, in that same article, it mentioned that Sam Madison was having issues with the DBs, and they were getting into it as well. And all the injuries that were happening, he was struggling with, and things like that, and coaching the DBs up. So, again, I don't know now if losing Sam Madison is a good thing or not. But Tyrann Mathieu, he also, he didn't comment on it, but he congratulated Sam Madison on his new job in Miami, and he seemed very happy for him as well. So it's like, again, you don't know what to believe in it, but it's definitely an interesting read, which I think every Chiefs fan should check out, because I don't know, a lot. I think it's better than most of our conspiracy theories where we thought Mahomes threw the game and the NFL wanted the Rams in the Super Bowl to help the LA. Man, I'm thinking way too fast. To help the LA fans and pay off that stadium and all that. It's just crazy. I know those conspiracies are still going to be out there. I know there's going to be people that believe it, but I would lean more to this article than that kind of conspiracy theories. But you never know nowadays. This is a crazy world we live in. I just don't see Mahomes blowing a game. But again, if it's a script, then it's a script. I just hope next year the script pays off for Kansas City and we'll win in Super Bowls again. But like I said, I would lean towards more of, I think now you don't have no choice. I think KC wanted this to happen, so they have a reason to be like, this is why we're not bringing Bieniemy back next year with everything going on. Because if they didn't have nothing like this or anything leading up to this as well, they everyone be wondering, well, okay, now he can't get an OC job, and then throw him KC into that discrimination factor as well. And I think this is how KC wanted to build up. Things just don't fall out of place like this naturally. Like, they laid it there and made sure someone would take it, and that's exactly what happened. Again, I don't know if Matt Nagy will be any different, but definitely for the culture, I think he would definitely help, because he was good with us as well. And he was a good offensive coordinator as well, especially if he was calling the plays. Again, though, in playoff time as well. I want to say, what was it, against the Titans? We were getting pissed at him there as well. It's like we're always calling for our OC's job when they be struggling, but it is what it is. But I'm going to still stick with my pin question, even though I know where a lot of Chiefs fans are going to be headed with this as well, especially with this article coming out. But I'm just going to kind of rephrase it. Is Matt Nagy an upgrade over Eric Bieniemy? Or let me know in the comments down below as well. Is there some guy out there that you would want to see out of either another offensive coordinator position in the NFL or even out of college as well, that you would want to see groomed and be the next OC in Kansas City? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. And thank you for checking this video as well. It didn't go as I wanted to attend it because this article came out. I had something so planned for this, but then it switches up as well. So it might seem a little inconsistent on what I'm going with as well, but hopefully I still gave you guys a good take. as much, I wanted to let you guys know my opinion on the story as well. So I got that out there, but let me know your opinions in the comments below as well. If you're buying this story or if it doesn't make complete sense whatsoever. But like I said, please do subscribe to the channel because I got a lot more takes on this offseason as well. Like, it's going to be a crazy offseason. We're not even really fully in offseason yet, and we got stuff like this coming out. We're not signing players. It ain't drafted. It ain't even combine time yet, and this offseason's already kicking for the Kansas City Chiefs. So you know I'm going to give you any scoop I can, any news that breaks. So you do want to stay tuned, and please do like this video as well, you guys. And I'm going to check out for the night, so you guys take care.